Have you ever walked into a paint store hoping to find the perfect wall color for your home, only to feel totally overwhelmed by all of the options? Well, on this episode of Design to the Nines, I show you just how easy it is to pick the perfect paint color for your walls. So stay tuned. With DesignToTheNines.com, where if it has to do with the home, I've got you covered. If you like learning about home decor, DIY, real estate, and homemaking, hit the subscribe button below and turn on the notifications because I post weekly tutorials that you aren't going to want to miss. I am so excited about today's episode because it is on what just might be my most asked question of all time. What color should I paint my room? Now, I just got asked this the other day, and honestly, I think people, when they ask me this, they're expecting me to just tell them the color and send them on their merry way to the paint store, and they're done. But let me tell you, this is very subjective, and there's a lot more that goes into it than that. So there are things that you need to consider. Maybe a purple room is the perfect color for you. Maybe it's gray. But with all of this in mind, I have compiled my top 5 tips to select a paint color that is sure to put a smile on your face every time you enter the room. So I'm going to start with tip number 1, and that is you must have an inspiration piece, whether it's a pillow or a piece of fabric or a rug. You need a jumping off point for the whole design of the room. And this is something that I talked about in one of my more recent videos, is that you need to have a direction. You can't just go into a paint store and pick a color and expect that it's going to work for the design that you end up going with. In fact, you'll find that it will create you more problems. So you're going to definitely want an inspiration piece, something that has kind of all of the colors that you're hoping to have in your room, and that is going to be your jumping off point. While painting a room can be the biggest bang for your buck, it is very time consuming. So once you have painted a room, you're not going to want to turn around and do it all over again because you picked the wrong color. So we're going to try to avoid this pitfall. So choosing an inspiration fabric, whatever form you end up choosing, is critical. You must do this before you ever step foot in a paint store. If you do, you are going to regret it.
Big mistake. Big. Huge.
Tip number 2, do your homework. If you haven't already discovered the magic land of Pinterest, you're going to want to go there and start pinning a whole bunch of rooms that you like. Pin it without thinking too much. Just go in and, organize it how you want, but just pin things that sing to you and speak to you and really make you happy. Then I want you to go back and look through all those rooms and look for a common theme. Maybe in life you really love the color turquoise. You just love it, and you think you would be so happy if you had an entire room painted in turquoise. But when you go look at the pictures on Pinterest, you don't see any turquoise walls. What may be the case is you really like gray walls. And what you can do is bring in that color turquoise through bold statements. Now that's what I've done. So I usually have a pretty muted wall tone, but I like color. I am not afraid to use it, and I love it. But I use my color strategically, and I do it on accent walls and my window treatments and pillows, and I make the bold statements there. So what you may discover is while you really love the color turquoise, you may want to use it a little bit differently than an entire room painted in turquoise. So you're going to want to do this step before you ever set foot into a paint store. Otherwise, you might end up with turquoise walls that you want to paint down the road. Okay, so now that you have an inspiration fabric, and now that you kind of have an idea of what colors speak to you, and that might kind of influence the way you select an inspiration fabric, okay? So what you're going to do from here is you're going to look at that inspiration fabric and be like, what colors do I have to work with? So for example, I've got this pillow right here. This is my inspiration fabric. I've showed you this before in another video. And in it, we've got navy blue, we've got like a medium blue, and we've got like a seafoam green and a celery green, and then we've got like this creamy taupe color. So there's a lot of colors in here that we can work with. Now, what would work for a wall color? Now, if we take this in mind, obviously I ended up going with like the creamy taupe color because that's kind of what you see behind me. So that would obviously be a good choice. But we could also take this kind of celery green and get a lighter version of this color, and that could also be a really good option for a pink color. And then you've got like this really light denim blue. You could do that. Blues are hard, I will tell you that. I'll discuss that a little bit more in a minute. But you've got some options as far as color choices that we can put up on the wall. If you've got a rug, you kind of go through the same process. And then, so we've got an idea that we would either do like a taupe color, or we could do a light celery green. Then I want you to go back to Pinterest and go most popular sage green colors, or most popular celadon green colors, or most popular grayish, and it will pull up and you'll see a common theme on a lot of these, and you can see what they look like in a room, and you can get a feel for how they might look on a big palette. And what you can do is compile a list of colors. Then this is where we go to the paint store and we get samples. We don't buy paint yet, okay? So we go to the paint store and we don't buy paint, so don't do that. You're gonna wanna just get samples. You're gonna wanna get samples on the card, get a lot of them, they're free, they don't care, just take as many as you think you need. And you can also buy the little jars. You may want to do 2 trips, you might wanna get some paint samples on chips and then go buy little bottles. It's worth it to paint your, anyways, we'll talk about that in a minute. But you want samples, samples. You want samples galore. So for this tip, I thought the best thing to do would be to take you to the paint store. So we're going on a field trip to the paint store where we are going to select out some paint samples from the existing stock, and as well as going armed with the colors that we've already selected. So I'm going to get some samples of those, and we're just going to go do this. So let's go, we're almost there. Okay, we will not be intimidated. Okay, so here I found my spelt sage that I really like. But actually looking at this and comparing it to my pillow, I decided that I'm going to get a sample of ancient marble because it's a little bit lighter and I don't want it to be overpowering in the room. Hey, can I take all of these samples? I'm going to anyway. So I got a lot of funny looks in there, but all in the name of helping you guys out, the things I do. Anyways, although the guys at Lowe's didn't really want to be on camera, they were very helpful and really cool to let me do my thing. So it's all for you guys. Tip number 5 is get the samples on the wall, whether they're paint chips or hopefully you've got samples of the paint and you can actually paint it on the wall at this point. I want you to put it on a couple different walls, live with it a day or two, because you're going to need to see the paint in different light, different time of day, because it will change. You'll find it's a very big change, and you want to see how it looks in your space. Usually, more often than not, there's going to be a very clear winner, and you're going to be like, oh, yep, that's the one, and then you're done. Sometimes there's not a clear winner, and usually it's because you've selected 2 very good colors. They're very similar, and so in that case, I would just pull your family and friends and see what they all think, and then go with the winner. And usually you've done a good job selecting paint colors, so you probably can't go wrong in that situation. A couple of side notes that I wanted to give to you. As I previously mentioned, Blues are notoriously hard to choose, as well as yellows. In fact, with yellow, I typically try to avoid using it at all on a wall just because it is so hard to select. Now, that's not saying you can't do it, but I would do a lot of homework and definitely make sure you get those actual paint samples on the wall if you want to do yellow. Blue is hard, not as hard as the yellow. The problem with blue is a lot of times it ends up looking a little juvenile, so you want to make sure that you select a blue that is definitely more muted, that has some greens and grays in it, that make it feel a little more sophisticated and a little less juvenile. So those are a couple of things. My second tip is that I typically like eggshell and satin for the main body of the wall. You want to use semi-gloss for trim and woodwork, and then flat paint for the ceiling. Now, a lot of designers would disagree with me, but I prefer a white ceiling. Some designers really like to put a color on the ceiling as well, but I just prefer a white one. So I'm gonna push against that trend and probably get some comments on it, but that's okay. I like a white ceiling. Finally, as promised, I promised you my favorite tried and true paint colors, and I'm going to give you a couple of those now. Most of them are actually Restoration Hardware colors. Now, they don't have a huge selection of paint colors, but what they do have work really well, and they've obviously done their homework to select really awesome colors that work in a lot of interior spaces. So, for my first paint color, gray, I have 3 for you. The first one is Stone Gray by Restoration Hardware, and then my next one is Revere Pewter by Benjamin Moore, and then Repost Gray, I think it's Sherwin-Williams, but it might be Benjamin Moore. It really doesn't matter because I usually go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy a less expensive version of the color. For greens, I like Svelte Sage by Sherwin-Williams, Sycamore Green by Restoration Hardware, and blues, that tough blue, I really like Silver Sage by Restoration Hardware. I never have gone wrong with that color. It's one that pulls gray at times, pulls blue at others, and pulls green at other times. So it is a really versatile blue. I have a lot of luck with that. But again, you want to select colors that speak to you, that work with your inspiration fabric. And one other tip that I haven't mentioned before is if there's a color in your pillow that you, or your inspiration fabric that you really love, and you can transport that into the paint store, they can color match it. You can get an exact match of that color as long as there's enough for them to scan it with. And so that is a tip you definitely want to take. Again, don't buy it on your first trip. Make sure you get it on your wall, see how it looks, and on a bigger scale. So I hope you learned something today that was useful to you. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel with the notifications on. Please subscribe to my channel. I want to keep bringing you these weekly video tutorials on all things that have to do with the home. I've got some really fun stuff coming. You're definitely going to want to stay tuned, and make sure you check me out on all the major social media websites. I am there as well. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes.
Nerd alert!
I am so excited about today's episode because it is on what might just be. I am so excited for this episode. I am so excited. Oh, it's probably the most hard. I typically, okay. As I okay. Oh, all right.